nights of the roundups or whatever they were doing, the riots, the pogroms, she was in labor. And the people were so worked up in this situation, dragging the Jews out, that they actually took her while she was in labor. And they laughed at her. This is an actual eyewitness. They all laughed at her. They put her in the middle of the town square so everyone could come around and watch her. And then they all laughed and sort of threw things at her, and while she was doing this, and then whether they ripped the child out or they just, she had the birth or whatever in front of everyone, they took the child, just threw it on the ground and dashed its head to pieces, and had her sitting there with all the, whatever it was, stood her up with all the blood and everything hanging out of her. And this is how they treated people. And they didn't think this was bad. You know, there was no one saying, stop, don't do this. So, I mean, I have that image. This is one of the stories that came through this person from trying to find out what happened to people in this village. This was on the night of one of the roundups. That's the worst, one of the worst stories I've ever heard, frankly. Did you ever, I'm sorry to fill you with this sort of thing, but Dome is doing it here. Do you ever, any of you ever see that movie Sunshine? No? You guys are missing a lot. It's really hard. I mean, maybe maybe your world is better and you should miss it. Go see that movie Sunshine. It's about 4 generations of it's a true story, I think, pretty much, of I think it's in Budapest. Of a family in Budapest. And what happens to them over this period from the 1890s to the 1950s, 60s. And one of the episodes, they're all being assimilated by the early 1920s. They've been in the, Austro-Hungarian army, stuff like that. 2 brothers are learning how to fence and all this. One becomes an Olympic fencing champ, and so on and so forth. And then the Nazi thing pours over Hungary. And by this time they've all changed their names so they can become lawyers and and so on. They've taken Hungarian type names. I forget what they've taken. Their name was Sonnenschein, which means in German or Yiddish sunshine, Sonnenschein. They had a big kind of brewery, is what the family had, or something, and they had a Sonnenschein beer or something like that. So that's what the movie is named after, Sunshine. And the worst thing I have ever seen is when this boy is thrown into the concentration camps with his father, who had been the fencing champ, and I think his name, they've changed the name to Svort or something like that, a very good Hungarian name, Svort or something like that. And I forget what happens, they're all out there together, and his father won't humiliate himself to a German or Gestapo officer or something. And they take him, it's wintertime, and he's naked, and they hang him up on a tree, and they get a hose, and they just keep pouring cold water on him until he freezes to death in a big icicle. And the boy watches this. It's the worst scene I've ever seen in a movie. And it goes into the boy's soul. Anyway, later on, the communists come, and so he joins the communists, and he becomes a communist secret policeman. And he witnesses things he doesn't want to witness, and he's horrified by what he himself does, the boy who's been through all these things. And then finally, you see him at the end of the movie. He goes into the official, he quits all of it, and just doesn't want any more of any of it. He goes into the official name bureau, and he says to the woman at the desk, the communist official or whatever, I want to change my name. He said, okay, what's your name? It's Swart, something like that, Svart, something, some very good Hungarian name. He said, okay, so what do you want to change it to? He says, sunshine. And she looks at him and she's amazed. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to change your name to Sunshine? Change it back to what they originally were, way back. And he wouldn't say. He just wants his name changed back. This is a great movie. That's all I can tell you. If you have a chance, it's a wonderful movie. You can get it in the rental stores. It's a Technicolor. It's 3 hours. It's a very big epic. You want to see something that'll really teach you something about the situation and everything, go get this movie, Sunshine. You won't be sorry. It's probably the best movie I've seen in the last 10 years in many ways. I don't know, it's the best movie in all regards, but the most moving movie that I've seen, certainly on this subject, for sure, beyond any movie I've ever seen on this subject, because it has totally the ring of truth, and it goes through, let's say, 4 generations. I don't want to spoil it, I've already spoiled it for you, but I have to encourage you to go see a movie like that, because if I don't tell you a little about it, you won't understand why. One hears in all places, top of 6, where they are allowed to multiply numbers, the accusation that they monopolize branches of trade permitted to them, and Christians are unable to compete. It's the sort of thing we hear about Asians in America today, or in the ghetto you hear this about Koreans or something, and different, it's a typical accusation that's made against newcomers because they know how to progress in a certain trade and so on. Again, he says everything is political, page 7. The accusation that today's Jews even now regard the Christians with fanatic hatred, etc., which causes some of their ancestors 18th century to go to crucify Jesus, hardly deserves a serious reply. So you see, he just dismisses that outright, even though but anyway, even if there were any truth to it, he said, only in barbarian tribes could the descendants in France, Germany be punished for a crime committed many centuries ago. It is, in fact, that the mutual antipathy of the two religious groups which have common origin has persisted longer than the philosophical mind would guess and desire after such a long time. But just that is the fault of the governments which were unable to reduce the friction and so on. Well, you see, he doesn't go into the historical Jesus problem. He accepts the scripture himself. And in fact, if you read Nietzsche, that's my beef with Nietzsche. He's actually, quite an enlightened philosopher in a lot of ways. And I think what was the big work he wrote?